In this series, we explore what people slept on through history. Join me as we discuss bed manners across the globe and throughout time. Linen was a common fabric for bedding in ancient Egypt, just as it was in other Mediterranean civilizations. It was made from the flax plant, which grew abundantly in the Nile River Delta. The hot Egyptian climate meant that people preferred lightweight bedding. Linen was chosen not only for its comfort and durability, but also for its easy care. Wool was typically imported from other regions, as the climate in Egypt did not favor sheep raising. 2000-degree offers super soft faux fur throws for snuggling on the couch and oversized, chunky knits for adding texture to your living room. You are tucking yourself into bed with a linen sheet and woolen blanket in Greece around 500 BC during warmer months. Greeks might opt for lighter materials such as linen. In contrast, during the colder seasons, wool became the preferred choice. Therefore, providing guests with a clean and comfortable place to sleep was an essential part of their culture. The transition from the classical Greek period to the Roman era brought about changes in art, architecture, and daily life, including the way people slept. While ancient Greeks preferred linen during warmer months, Romans favored wool for its durability and insulating properties. These mattresses were not very comfortable, but they were practical and inexpensive. Wealthier Romans could afford more luxurious bedding options, such as beds covered in linen or wool and even heated by slaves or servants. Ultimately, the choice of bedding in ancient Rome depended on a variety of factors, including social class, personal preference, and the time of year. While the wealthy enjoyed the luxury of fine linens and heated beds, the majority of Romans relied on wool as a practical and affordable material for their bedding needs. Wool was commonly used for bedding in Roman households, particularly among the lower classes who lived in rooms with dirt floors and thatched roofs. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit the like button and subscribe for more content. Let us know in the comments if you prefer linen or wool and tell us which civilization you'd like to learn about next. Until then, I invite you to check out some of my other videos and I wish you sweet dreams wherever in history you may find yourself. In these conditions, a woolen blanket provided much needed warmth and protection from the cold. Romans believed that wool could ward off evil spirits and bring good luck, making it a popular choice for households of all social classes. The host would often roll out a woolen blanket or coverlet for visitors to use during their stay. Emperor Nero infamously enjoyed luxurious linen bedding, reportedly going through 36 pairs per month. However, the majority of Romans relied on wool for their bedding needs. Wool was a versatile material that could be used for a variety of bedding items, including blankets, coverlets, and even mattresses. The Romans had a particular fondness for brightly colored and intricately woven wool textiles, often displaying scenes from mythology or everyday life. For example, the famous Roman fresco known as The Wedding of the Emperor's Son depicts a Roman wedding celebration and shows a bed covered with a colorful woolen blanket. Ancient Greeks were known for their love of comfort and luxury, and this extended to their bedrooms. Many upper-class homes featured intricately designed bedrooms with painted walls and inlaid floors. The beds themselves were often placed against these walls or floors to maximize the use of space and create a focal point in the room. Some beds were even elevated to make them more accessible and to deter insects and animals from entering. Additionally, curtains or drapes were sometimes used to provide privacy or to block drafts from entering the bedroom. This was not only because of its insulating properties, but also because it was more durable and lasted longer. Blankets were often used in conjunction with sheets to provide additional warmth and comfort. Additionally, a woolen blanket could be used as a practical and portable sleeping option when traveling or camping. And in more rural areas, shepherds and farmers might use animal skins as a makeshift bedding. While not as soft or comfortable as linen or wool, these materials were readily available and offered some protection from the elements. In ancient Greece, the concept of furniture varied greatly, starting from humble wooden crates to more luxurious marble or stone creations. A simple wooden bed frame was a common sight in many homes, especially among the lower classes. These beds were often quite small and were made from rough-hewn planks of wood. On the other hand, the upper classes might enjoy more substantial beds crafted from materials like marble or limestone. These beds were not only sturdier but also served as works of art, sometimes intricately carved with mythological scenes or elegant patterns. The wealthiest citizens could even afford beds made of gold and ivory, truly fit for a king or queen. Their reversible Sherpa-lined throws are my go-to for staying warm in my office. Use code SLEEPOVER20 at checkout and let 2000 degrees help you stay warm this winter. Thanks to 2000 degrees for sponsoring this episode. Now let's get back to the video. These woolen pieces were often used as blankets or coverlets and were placed over the linen sheets to provide insulation during cooler temperatures. The throws could be made from a variety of materials, including the wool of goats, sheep, or even camels. Goat hair was sometimes mixed with linen in the weaving process to create a stronger and more durable fabric. While wool was generally used as a supplementary material, there are some instances where it played a more central role. For example, the Fayum mummy portrait, which depict the deceased individuals wrapped in linen and laid on stone beds, sometimes show them covered with a woolen blanket. This suggests that wool was still used as a primary material in some contexts. possibly due to its insulating properties in the cooler Fayum region where these portraits were found. Regardless of the material used, these items were often passed down through families and were cherished possessions. They served both practical and symbolic purposes, providing warmth and comfort, while also representing the family's wealth and status. It could be washed regularly, helping to keep the sleeper clean and healthy. For washing, the linen would be soaked in water and a mild soap made from animal fat and ashes would be used to clean the fabric. Once clean, the linen would be rinsed thoroughly and then dried in the sun before being put back on the bed. Despite these efforts, linen was still prone to damage from insects and other pests. To combat this, Egyptians may have used natural moth repellents such as lavender or cedarwood oil on their bedding. Additionally, they developed techniques for repairing damaged linen so that it could be reused. Mending was a necessary skill as it allowed the Egyptians to make the most of their valuable possessions and reduce waste. Techniques included darning holes, patching tears, and weaving in new threads to replace damaged ones. Linen provided a cool, comfortable surface to sleep on, and its durability allowed it to withstand the wear and tear of everyday use. In fact, linen was considered one of the finest fabrics available and was often used by the pharaohs and their nobles as a symbol of wealth and power. While the elite may have had access to higher quality linen, it's also likely that the lower classes used the same material. Just like today, linen could be found in homes across Egypt, regardless of social status. The year is 3000 BC and you are sleeping on linen in Egypt. The average Egyptian home would consist of a mud brick or stone house with a flat roof. However, those with means could afford more elaborate designs. These patterns could include geometric shapes, floral motifs, or even scenes from daily life. For example, the famous Narmer palette, a piece of artwork depicting the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt, is made from linen and showcases the intricate detail and craftsmanship that went into some of these textiles. Another example is the papyrus mattress, which was a type of mattress used in ancient Egypt that was made from layers of papyrus plants interwoven with linen. This created a springy and supportive surface for sleeping and was a luxury item reserved for the wealthy elite. The roof provided a surface for drying crops and goods, but it could also serve as a sleeping area during cooler months. Families would spread out linens and blankets on the roof, creating a comfortable surface for sleeping. In contrast, the wealthy Egyptians might have had elevated beds made of wood or stone. These beds were often intricately carved and decorated with precious materials. In these cases, linen sheets and blankets would have been used to cover the bed and provide a soft surface to sleep on. For the general population, linen was typically woven in plain patterns and colors, such as white or natural linen. The ancient Egyptians valued cleanliness and personal hygiene, and this extended to their bedding as well. While linen was the primary fabric for bedding, ancient Egyptians also used woolen throws to add an extra layer of warmth when needed. Speaking of woolly items, our sponsor, 2000 Degree, has a throw for any occasion. Now it's time for bed. The choice of bedding would depend on various factors, including the season and personal preference. It's important to note that ancient Greeks placed great importance on hospitality. Now it's 440 AD and you are lying on wool in Greece and Rome. During the Roman Empire, linen remained popular among the upper classes for special occasions or for those who could afford it. Speaking of the bed, ancient Romans often slept on straw mattresses placed on top of wooden bed frames. Thanks for joining me on this sleepy journey through time. In the beginning, there was nothing but water. There was no dry land anywhere. No trees or plants, no animals or humans. But then from the depths of the watery abyss, a great turtle slowly emerged. So it closed its eyes and drifted off to sleep, completely alone. In the distance, he could see the twinkling lights of fireflies dancing among the tall grasses. He turned back to tell his friends, but they were gone. "Why do you hide during the day?" he asked. But one afternoon, dark clouds gathered in the sky and the wind grew cold and harsh. When the sun returned and the rain had stopped, they woke up feeling refreshed and renewed. Over time, their pile of leaves, fur and moss grew into a thick blanket. The animals used this blanket every night when they slept together under the big leaf. All they knew was that they didn't feel good, so the woman did her best to comfort them. Looking into her child's innocent eyes, the woman knew what she had to do. Finally, she came across a small hut. A fire burned outside, and the smell of cooking meat made her stomach rumble. But she couldn't stop to rest. She had to get home before her children went to sleep. She would do whatever it took to protect her children, even if it meant leaving the safety of her cave. Pulling on her thickest animal skin coat, the woman braved the storm and ventured out into the wild. She sang a soft song as she rocked her babies, and she told them stories about brave hunters and magical creatures. They grew strong and healthy, and the woman knew it was because of the magic blanket. They remember the old woman who saved their lives and the turtle who gave the first animals a place to sleep. And they know that as long as they have each other and the blanket, they will never be cold or scared. From that day on, the woman and her children used the blanket every night when they slept. But even as she spoke, the woman felt fear creeping into her heart. "Why are you rushing home in such bad weather?" she asked. The woman explained that her children were sick, and she needed to get back to take care of them. "Don't worry, said the old woman. "You can stay here as long as you need to. My hut is your hut and my food is your food. You have no worries." Her children were too young to survive the winter without help. She spent the night by the fire, eating warm stew and drinking hot tea. The old woman told her stories about magical creatures in faraway lands, and the woman forgot all about her troubles. If they got sick, there was no one else in the village who could take care of them. No one except her. "Take some of these grasses and weave them into a thick blanket," she said. "This will keep your children warm until spring." The woman thanked the old woman and rushed home. From that day on, whenever the weather turned cold and rainy, the animals would pile together under the leaf to stay warm and dry. She laid the blanket over them and tucked them in. Then she watched over them all day, making sure they were comfortable and happy. Whenever one of them cried, the woman would sing a soft song and stroke their back until they fell back asleep. Soon, fat raindrops began to fall, and the animals ran to find shelter under a large leaf. But the more it rained, the colder they became. She lived in a small village with her family, and her days were filled with gathering berries and nuts, making clothes from animal skins, and caring for her young children. One evening a big storm rolled in, and the woman and her children huddled together in their cave house for warmth. It was a small space made of branches and leaves, and it did a good job keeping out the wind and rain, but it offered little protection from the cold. "I'm so wet and cold," squeaked a tiny field mouse. "If only we had something soft to lie on," said a rabbit, shivering. Just then, an inventive squirrel had an idea. He ran through the forest gathering fallen feathers, dried leaves, and soft moss. Then he showed the others how to make a bed by piling the materials into a small mound. At first it wasn't very comfortable, but as the animals took turns adding new layers, it grew softer and softer. Soon it was like a fluffy cloud, and the animals snuggled down on top of it. The rabbit was so happy. "I haven't been this warm and cozy in a long time," he sighed. "You are missing all the wonder and beauty of the sunlit hours." The animals explained that they were afraid of being alone in the daylight, so the owl offered to keep them company. And just like that, the little animals were no longer afraid to come out during the day. The other animals had snuck out while he was on paying attention and were now darting between the blades of grass, chasing butterflies and playing hide and seek among the reeds. But soon it began to feel cold, so it pulled its head in and curled up into a ball. And because it was such a big turtle, its shell provided enough warmth for the first animals to be born inside of it. These were small animals who had never felt the sun or the wind or the rain. They had never experienced life on land, but they were curious. So every night they would gather at the edge of the turtle's shell and peek out into the darkness. Its shell scraped against the hard earth, creating ridges and valleys that would eventually become mountains and canyons. The turtle kept rising until its head and forelegs reached the sky, where they hardened into clouds. And just like that, our world was born. The turtle then slid back into the sea and lay down on the sandy bottom. It had been a long journey, and the turtle was tired. One night, a small mouse crept all the way to the top of the shell and looked around. What he saw made his heart leap with joy. But as the moon climbed higher into the sky, the temperature began to drop. And when the fireflies went home, the animals huddled together for warmth. As the first rays of sunlight touched their fur, they scurried back to the safety of the turtle's shell. There they dozed until nightfall, when they would sneak out again to play. Every night they repeated this routine until one day when a wise old owl noticed that the weather stayed warm and sunny for many moons, and the animals grew strong and happy. Then the animals closed their eyes, snuggled close to each other, and fell fast asleep. Many years passed, and the animals continued to add new layers to their bed. Now let me tell you a story about a human woman who lived a long time ago. The woman and children were too young to understand why their teeth were chattering or why their small bodies trembled with cold. As if sensing her fear, the woman's daughter reached out and grabbed her finger. She walked for hours, stumbling over rocks and fallen trees, but she didn't care. The thought of her sick children gave her strength. As she hurried past the hut, someone grabbed her arm and turned around. It was an old woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile. The woman hesitated, but her children's worried faces made her accept the old woman's offer. When the sun finally peeked through the clouds, the old woman led the woman to a nearby field and pointed to the tall grasses. When she arrived, she found her children sleeping soundly. Weeks turned into months, and the children never got sick. Now, every night when the moon climbs high in the sky, the woman's descendants take out the magic blanket and snuggle together for warmth. Once upon a time in a faraway land, there was a young lad who lived with his parents in a cozy cottage made of stone. The walls were thick and strong, perfect for keeping out the cold winter winds that howled through the valley each night. But the problem was that the family didn't have much money, and they couldn't afford a proper bed or blankets to keep themselves warm during the long, dark nights. The father, a kind and gentle man, had a brilliant idea. He would make a bed for their son out of straw, and then use old wool blankets to cover him up. One was a rough and scratchy homespun wool, and the other was a softer blanket that had belonged to the boy's great-grandmother. A fierce storm rolled in. "Snuggled, you slept well last night, my little one," It seems that your blankets kept you safe and dry even during the fiercest of storms. Let the gentle breeze carry away all your worries and fears. As the moon and stars twinkle above you, know that you are loved and cherished. Rest now, dear child, and let your dreams take you on magical adventures. And if you have any suggestions for topics that I should cover in future videos, please leave them in the comments below. Until next time, may your nights be filled with peaceful dreams and your days with joy and laughter. Goodbye. Fly with birds made of moonlight and dance with shadows in the silver light. Imagine you are a brave knight, a beautiful princess, or anything that you wish. Let your mind wander to places beyond your wildest dreams. The boy opened his eyes and yawned and said, "No matter what the wind may say or the darkness try to do, you will always find comfort in our love." Their words have the power to transport us to other times and places, to make us feel the emotions of the characters in their tales. Stories connect us to our past, teach us about the world around us, and remind us of the importance of human connection. Through stories, we learn about different cultures, beliefs, and ways of life, which helps us to become more understanding and compassionate towards others. They also help us to make sense of the world around us by providing us with explanations for how things came to be the way they are. Stories can also inspire us to be better versions of ourselves, by teaching us valuable lessons and showing us examples of courage, kindness, and determination. By listening to and sharing stories, we can keep the traditions of our ancestors alive and pass them down to future generations. We can honor the memories of those who came before us by learning about their struggles and celebrating their triumphs. Stories have the power to bring people together and create a sense of community. When we gather around and share stories, we create bonds with others and build relationships that can last a lifetime. So hush now, my darling, and let the silence of the night be your lullaby. Dream sweet dreams of meadows filled with flowers and skies full of sunshine. I did sleep well, Mama. Thank you for keeping me so warm and cozy last night. Then he got up and helped his parents gather more straw to make a new bed for himself. Whenever a big storm came through, the boy would snuggle down under his blankets and pillows and imagine that he was a brave knight protecting his kingdom from harm. The sound of the wind and rain would lull him to sleep, and he would dream of valiant battles and daring adventures. Thanks to the love of his parents and the comfort of his wool blankets and straw bed, he learned that even in the darkest and coldest of nights, as long as you have someone who cares about you, you will always have a little bit of warmth and happiness in your heart. His blankets and pulled his pillow over his head to block out any noise from the storm. In the morning, after the sun had come back out and the storm had passed, the boy got up and went to help his parents patch up the roof. When they came back inside, they saw that the blankets had shifted during the night and most of the straw had fallen out of the bed. But the boy was still sleeping soundly, and none of the rainwater had made it through to wet him. And the wind and rain beat against the stone walls of the cottage. The boy was fast asleep under his blankets, when suddenly he heard a loud crash. It was the sound of a large tree that had been struck by lightning and had fallen right across the roof, making a big hole for the wind and rain to come in through. The boy was scared at first, but then he remembered that he was tucked away in his warm bed and that the only danger he faced was the possibility of a little bit of rainwater dripping onto his straw mattress. It was hand-woven and had pictures of fantastical beasts and mythical heroes stitched into it. But inside the little bedroom, the boy would be nice and warm under his layers of blankets. His parents would often peek in on him as they passed by his room, and they would smile to see him sleeping soundly, sometimes even with a small smile on his face. They knew that even though he was just a simple farm boy, he was living a life of luxury compared to many other children in the kingdom. The boy loved this blanket, and every night he would snuggle up under its soft wool, imagining he was a brave knight on an exciting adventure. Every night before bed he would gather up the straw and make a soft, springy mattress for their son to sleep on. It wasn't very comfortable, but it was better than sleeping on the cold stone floor, and the boy loved the sound that the straw made when he tossed and turned all night long. After the straw bed was made, his mother would take her to wool blankets and lay them over top. Then his father would come and tuck in the blankets around the edges of the straw bed, making sure that there were no gaps for the cold air to seep through. Sometimes he would even use old rags to stuff into the cracks, just to be sure that his son was nice and toasty inside his bed. As the night wore on, the wind outside the cottage would grow louder and the temperature would drop. One night, his mother smiled and said, "From that day on." And so the boy grew up warm and safe in his little cottage. The end. Now close your eyes, my little one, and dream sweet dreams of meadows, filled with flowers and skies full of sunshine. Oh, my little one, the night is dark and cold, but inside our home, we are safe and warm. It is said that those who tell stories of old and sing songs of courage are blessed with the gift of the storyteller. So if you enjoy these medieval bedtime stories, please like and subscribe.